Hello and welcome to another 15 Minutes of Fame. I'm Ralph Ann Forrest, your host, and for 30 years, I've helped women show up looking and feeling their absolute best. And so, as you know, I've been spotlighting a lot of pageant queens and just, sharing how they're really showing up in their communities and their businesses and their lives, just doing extraordinary things. So today I have the pleasure of chatting with my friend Amy Mewborn, who is the reigning Mrs. Las Vegas, but y'all, she has got like an entrepreneurial background and story, and she has just done some phenomenal things. And she continues just to amaze me all the time. So I want her to tell you more about, how she's continuing to grow her business and how, that's basically become a little bit of a reflection too of who I know she's going to be on that stage when she competes for Mrs. Nevada in this coming November of this year. So anyway, I will bring on Amy. Hello, Amy.
Hello, it's so good to see you, Ralph Ann. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here on this. I know it's a 3 hour difference because you're on the West Coast. And I always tell people I love the connection that we can make online. But my disclaimer would always be every now and then there can be a little bit of glitch in the Wi Fi system, but it's still easier than us, flying coast to coast like we used to have to do in the day back in the day. You have to fly to be on an interview back in the day. So I'm just excited. So tell me, like I said, we're kind of old friends here, and but am still just so always just amazed about all the things that you do and continue to do. So first, let's tell us about this juicy title that you've got, Mrs. Las Vegas, and how that came about.
So for me, this is my first year ever doing a pageant, and I am 46 this year. I am USOA Mrs. Las Vegas, and I'm doing it because I believe firmly in lifelong growth. And if you're not growing, you're dying. And I have seen so much just tremendous growth out of some of my very best girlfriends here in Vegas, where they had never done pageants in their life. And all of a sudden, 3 years ago, this group of girls started doing pageants. And all of a sudden, you see them as completely different people. One of my biggest fears growing up has always been speaking on stage. And it started in high school when I basically like freaked out in the middle of speech class. And
Wow.
so I went and took debate to get over that fear. And I've continued to speak on stages and do things like that to continually push myself out of my comfort zone and continually learn and improve. But at this point, it's one of those things that I really need to completely just break the fear and get over it. And so I figured, what's the scariest thing I could do? I could go and put on really high heels and a swimsuit and a big fancy dress and go and speak in front of people and have people ask me questions that I'm not prepared for.
Correct. Being judged in a swimsuit in front of strangers. There's yeah, no pressure, no
Yeah.
pressure. And it is true. And I think I know my own personal experience has been definitely, self growth. It just, was a very, very shy child. I mean, very shy, introverted to the point of where it was painful for me to speak sometimes. But I did find that growing up when I was in my element, somehow, you know, this superhuman would kind of like come in and I would all of a sudden just kind of emerge into this other person. And so for me, Patmos would kind of, even being a shy child, like it's almost like I would be in my element. And then when I was in my element, all of a sudden, like I said, something else would kind of come out of it. And so one of the reasons though why I was attracted to, because for those of you that don't know, Amy and I are actually in the same system, USOA. And I love how their empowerment and, they're all women's empowerment and inspiring, and they love to take women who have established things in their life and really, really celebrate that. And so I think that, that's one of the things that I think is fair to say that we have in common, because you have this extraordinary career. And so, if you would just kind of tell everybody a little bit about your background, I know your background in finance and coaching and all the good things, and tell everybody about that and how you've been able to kind of, take that and just kind of run with the whole, the pageant thing.
I have been so blessed. I spent 15 years in finance and I worked with some of the coolest clients. They owned Ford franchises, Chuck E. Cheese franchises, the founder of the Vinturi Wine Aerator. And so they were these amazing family business owners. And I saw very early on that often the women weren't included in a lot of the really important financial decisions.
Mm.
And so for me, I really wanted to empower women. And I especially wanted to empower women financially. And so I left finance in 2010. I launched 2 San Diego fitness studios. I helped write franchise manuals for one of the big brands. And then I started coaching women, normally to leave corporate and open studios. And then I found that I was really good with the tech and the digital marketing. And so I started coaching women on how to build businesses, consulting, service, online businesses. And so my passion is helping women build financial independence their way, often through business ownership. And so it's who I am through and through. I
Mm.
want women to have the power to make whatever decisions they want to make.
I love it. And I think that to me, in so many ways is what, and I know that there's a different pageant system for everyone. And there are some that are still traditionally, more for models and, are still beauty pageants in the sense of that word. But I think that, I was talking with someone earlier and we were just saying how, for one, there's a system for everybody. There used to be a time when you aged out. And I said, well, thank goodness that wasn't a thing, because I didn't even know to ask that question. I've never been in my 40s competing until now. So I never even asked, like, wait, am I too old? I just kind of went with it. And so to me, the inclusivity is one of the things I find that's most empowering, in pageants, is the fact that it's not just about your typical height, weight, look anymore, or even age. That is just so diverse, because society, I think, needs to understand that, women have gifts to offer, you know, at any age, at any size, and any color. And I mean, you being a big advocate for women's empowerment too, and their financial health, to me, and physical health, because I know about your fitness studios and that part of your career and that journey. Um, so financially speaking, and I love that, because we are still living in a time, unfortunately, where, men still get paid more. Men are still making, not to get political, still making a lot of decisions that affect women directly, that I really don't think, I still think we need to get our power back. Um, so financially speaking, like, how do you feel like that really, what about that piece really makes you feel like that's empowering to women? I mean, other than like the obvious, women need money so they can have more freedom and decisions, but ultimately, like, what have you witnessed, you know,
It's so
how
much
have you
more.
witnessed that hurt women?
It is so much more than women needing or wanting money for their own purposes. If
Mhm.
you really look around, and one of the things I love so much about pageantry that I didn't really understand when I first learned about pageants is that pageantry is really about giving back to the community and how are you showing up in the community. And I believe that when women have wealth, women are the ones that are putting that back
Right.
into the community. They're the ones passing it on
Mm-hmm.
to future generations. Women are the nurturers that want to make sure that their kids are taken care of, their grandkids are taken care of, that the other kids in the community are taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe that by empowering women financially, we're also empowering them mentally and emotionally, where they're much more prepared and much more, they're ready to give back. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's amazing. I think that's who we all want to be, is someone that is grabbing someone else as we climb and
Mm-hmm.
saying, let's do this together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. I love that. And I think, you spoke on a very important piece to me, and it's the ability to give back, and even if it's something little. I mean, I know I saw a post on Facebook not long ago, where somebody was really in dire need of, she was sick and they were in between paychecks, and they needed money for a bill, and sometimes it's even just being in a position to say, and then she was just kind of like reaching out to people like, who can help me with this? And, my heart just kind of was like, "Ugh," because for one, it takes a big person to ask for help. But then you have to think about, how the disempowerment it feels to have to ask for help sometimes. And for those that weren't in a position to help, how that made them feel. And it's almost like this vicious cycle, it's just, and it was, a couple $100. I'm like, you know what? For her to feel disempowered because she doesn't have it, for the people that she's reaching out to feel bad because they don't have it to give, just all these different pieces. But I do know for a fact that, to me, being able to help out, and sometimes it's not anything as serious, as a bill and whatever. Sometimes it's just being able to give a nice gift. Like you said, women, we're the ones that's going to give back to our communities and bless other women, and do all the things. And I agree 100%. I think being able to give back, um I like to do a little self-care gift for my fundraisers that I do. And I just think that I'm like, you know what, even if it's $20, you can go get yourself a manicure or buy yourself, a dozen roses to put in the house. I just think that that's I just think that it's so big for what it can do for you. So tell me a little bit more about, like, so preparing for this particular pageant. I know you said this is your first, and I mean, so how do you feel about that? Like, has it changed like your day-to-day life in regards to preparation and training?
Yes, I've always tried my best to live a healthy life and a life of personal growth. I'm a personal development junkie, so I'm constantly educating myself. I always have a business coach. And in this case, what I've done is I've gone and found coaches to help me with some things that I know are not my strengths. I said I'm a little afraid to speak on stage. So
Mhm.
I'm working with coaches to try to be more comfortable in front of other people and be asked questions I don't know are going to come at me. So that's been one thing. I absolutely am working with a coach for walking and posing, because those are
Mhm.
two things that, again, I'm probably the farthest thing from what someone would call a beauty queen. And that's not what I'm doing it for. I'm doing
Mhm.
it for the personal growth. And so I still want to represent myself
Of
well on
course.
stage. And I'm making sure that I'm as well prepared in that regard as possible. As the pageant is getting closer, I'm starting to kind of dial down my nutrition a little bit more than normal. I have a sweet tooth and I love a great glass of wine.
Yep.
And so those are two things that I'm struggling with maybe a little bit. I love fitness and I've always loved fitness. So for me, I'm probably amping up my workouts.
Mm,
I have a Peloton tread here in the house, reformer, and then I have just added a Peloton bike. So I never have to leave the house and I still have these
nice.
amazing workouts, and that's been great. But I'm absolutely dialing in a lot of things that I maybe don't do with a whole heart day in and day out.
Mhm.
So yeah.
It's fun, and I think that, I used to tell clients, coaching clients that, if you want the best life experience, start a business. And
Yeah.
I think that my disclaimer would be start a business and enter a pageant would be like the two areas, because if you can do that, and it's not just because it's not just entering the pageant. I think if you consider it like, okay, this is like a personal growth piece. This can also, elevate my career. This can, kind of give me credibility within my community. There's just so many things that, it can do for anyone. And so, but yeah, the personal growth piece, I didn't realize that I was competitive. Well, yeah, I did realize I was I didn't realize how competitive I was until you give me a date and tell me on this day you have got to stand in front of a room of strangers, and you have got to pretty much, yes, be judged on a scale of 1 to 10. You're going to be judged, and I'm okay. I can hold my own, but there's something about that date. I don't know about you, but when
Yeah.
it's like a countdown, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm looking at my calendar this morning and I'm like, okay, I have like I think it's 8 weeks before my state pageant, and yours is
Yeah.
like a month later. No pressure, no pressure.
Now that you say that, all of a sudden I may be a little bit more afraid because I'm certainly, if I'm truly only 12 weeks out, I'm certainly not working nearly as hard as I should be. Now, for me, I'm not competitive. I really, truly, I'm not really a competitive person. I believe there's plenty for everyone. Yes, there's only going to be one winner, but I'm not really competing against anyone else on that stage. I'm doing this for myself. And
Mhm.
so I am competing with myself to be able to get up on a stage in a high heels and a swimsuit and answer questions and not just be like hiding behind everyone and everything that's going on. So yeah.
It is fun, and I love that. Yeah, I think to me the personal growth piece is priceless. I mean, by all means. But yeah, and I think, and I do think that the competitive nature that I get comes from, all right, it kind of comes from comparing myself to previous competitions. And maybe that is who I feel like I'm competing against. I feel like a little bit like, okay, I shouldn't have wore the blue swimsuit that year. That was not the best color on me, even though in my head I thought it was. But this year I'm gonna wear red. So I feel like, and I don't remember what anybody else wore. So maybe a part of it is like the competitive nature is almost competing against. I do feel like I have to compete against my younger self a little bit. It almost is something that you need to prove to yourself that you can do.
Well, and I need goals and deadlines in
Hmm.
order for me to show up as my best self. I'm constantly growing and I'm constantly doing things to improve, but I can be a little lax and maybe a little lazy in terms of giving things my best if I don't have a specific goal that I'm trying to achieve and a deadline. And it's
Mm,
why so many people run marathons and do these things. It's not so much that they want to run a marathon, it's that they've set a goal for themselves and that they know that that goal is what's going to get them there. For me, that's kind of what this pageant is going to be about, is the fact that over the past couple years, I probably drink more wine while we've been sitting in our homes for 2 years. And
right.
I've certainly eaten not as well as I could. I wasn't going to bar class 4 times a week like I was before. And so I just feel like so many things in my life had started, and I didn't want that to continue. So to have this goal and a
Mhm.
deadline, a hard deadline that goes with the goal, that I really kind of have to step out and do my best. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love it. It's like the ultimate accountability partner.
Yes.
It
Yes.
is. It's like the ultimate in accountability. All right, so I think it's wonderful. I think that you're definitely going to get the self growth experience that you were looking for. And for first time pageant people, and I will say this as a pageant coach myself, you're either going to get the pageant bug and you're going to be like, okay, I see now why this can be contagious, or you're going to do like some others and like, okay, yeah, that was fun, and run and never come back. But either way, the self-growth piece, I agree. That's priceless. So tell everybody like how they can find you, and like, if they want some business coaching, I mean, definitely, you're the woman, and just to follow your pageant journey too. I think that, a lot of people really want to, cheer you on, and we're all suckers for first timers, anything. We all want to see, like, what people would normally consider like, oh, first timers. I think in sports they call it the underdog when it's like their first time. So everybody loves to see that first timer like really pull through and win. I know I love to see that. That's, kind of like my before they were stars. I'm that person who just loves to cheer on, like, yay, How can we find you?
So you can find me on Facebook or Instagram, Amy Mewborn, AMYM as in Mary,
Yes.
EWBORN. It's Newborn except an M. And so in real life, if people call me Amy Newborn, I totally answer to that and it's no big deal, but you won't find me on social that way. Then my website is amynewborn.com, and my pageant handle is USOA Mrs. Las Vegas. And I've kind of just started posting there. We've got some posts from the past month or two. It's been great. And I'm out in the community doing some things, and you're going to see some of that show up on Instagram soon. I would say Instagram's probably the place I like to hang out the most nowadays.
Okay.
I
Okay.
just feel like it's the most fun,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah.
Cool. And you'll have a screenshot of this to add.
Yay.
So that'll
Thank
be
you.
fun. All right, so perfect. Well, thank you so much, Amy. It was great just catching up with you, and feels like old times. Only
Thank you
thing
for
missing for
coming.
me is the glass of wine, but like I said, I'm trying to really scale down on my wine consumption. And when I say I drink a half to maybe a glass a week, but it's fine. It's a treat. I'm hoping today is that day where I get to have my 5 ounces of something. But I don't know. It's fine. I understand. Trust me. The struggle is real.
Well, I think it's amazing how we find that our habits just start and you don't necessarily realize what you're doing until you make a conscious decision
Right.
to do something differently. And then you're like, oh my goodness, you know, the things that I choose to eat in my day to day, I just don't even stock them in the house right now
Right.
because yeah, I have a couple vices that it's just better not to have it around. And
Yeah.
so
It's
thank you for having.
Well, I appreciate it. Yes. And as we're talking, saying this, I'm thinking of like wine and cheese, and like, no, no, no. But yes, but I don't deprive myself. But like you said, for so many years, wine was a vice. And so I didn't realize at one point, my husband was like, we were drinking like wine like every day at one point, like every
Oh
day.
wow.
I remember telling my doctor, like every day, with no shade, no shame.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, was I really drinking wine every day? Yes. Not a lot, but every day. So anyway, we do what we do. I'm excited. It's been my pleasure as usual. And I look forward to hearing more about your journey, watching more of your journey. So I'm going to follow you on Facebook so I can see, and Instagram. I know Instagram is your place. So I can see
Thank
more of what you're up to. And again, I just wanted to thank you. And as always, here's to you becoming the best version of you. Thanks, everyone.